who is known the length and breadth of Wexford and indeed beyond, mainly through his work in the GAA and also through his business life. His name is Jim Berry, and Jim is a native of Rathangan, and he this year brought out a book on the club down there, and he has an interesting story to tell us now about his life and his time. So over to Jim Berry from Rathangan.
Well, thanks, Michael, for inviting me in here. I was born in Scar, Duncormac, County Wexford, 1943.
And you have lived most of your life there, or all of your life, Jim?
Well, I've lived all my life in Rathangan. I was born and reared in Scar and then moved up to Fort Mountain when I got married in 1969.
And tell me a bit about Scar then. It's an unusual name and it's a place we often hear tell of.
That's right, Scar. The Irish for Scar is on Corrig, the rock. And the Rock of Scar is where we spent a lot of time in our youth, you know, young lads, where there's some place to climb and run around and whatever. And we spent a lot of time on Scar Rock.
Well, I thought now, from living here all my life, that the whole of South Wexford was flat. I didn't know there was a rock in Scar.
Well, there is a rock in Scar, and over across the way then there's the famous quarry in Ballyconnick.
All right, yes.
The county council had a quarry there.
Yeah.
That's the land scene over in that area there, but it is mostly flat, I suppose.
Yeah. So how many berries were in the household growing up?
There were 9 of us in it. There was 5 girls and 4 boys. And I can reel them off: Maureen, Paddy, Margaret, Eileen, T.C., Francis, Jim, Jack and Phil. We used to get all off by heart, yeah. And Jack, God be good to him, passed away in 2006.
Mm-hmm. And where did you come into family?
Sorry, 2003. I came, I was third last. There was Jim, Jack and Phil. The 3 boys came last in the road.
Okay, yeah. And did you grow up on a farm then?
We had a farm there in Scar, yeah. We sort of a mixed farm. My father was a cattle dealer. He spent a lot of his time down in West Cork. He'd buy cattle down there and send them on the railway up to Duncormac. And Paddy was the eldest lad then. Paddy used to go down to the station to take the cattle off the train, and he'd bring them home then from there, and some of them were very wild, so he needed a little bit of help sometimes, and we brought them home and put them into the field, and then there was the fairs in Wexford and the fairs in Timon, and they were brought to the fairs then to be sold.
Yeah. And did you ever travel to the fairs or with your father yourself?
I did. I remember Jack and myself getting up at 4:30 in the morning and walk to the fair in Timon, which was 5 miles away. But we didn't mind, because you needed that. There was gaps in the fields everywhere, and the cattle would run into a field. Yeah. So one of us or 2 of us would have to go ahead and make sure the gaps were stopped.
You knew where every gap was?
We knew every gap across. Harperstown was a deadly place, and there was gaps everywhere in Harperstown.
Yeah. And the fairs in Timon, now, you know, our older listeners would remember them, but we're going back a long piece now since the days of the fair in Timon.
Yeah, we put our cattle at the cobblestones outside of Brennan's pub there. And across the street then was Keating's pub as well. That's where we got the food. When we got in there in the morning at 7:30 or 8, you were sent down to Keating's then to get the breakfast down there.
Yeah.
And there were some wet days as well. You'd go into the fair and there'd be very little there, and you'd drive home again. You know, you get wet going in and wet going back, so you never dry out.
And you brought home cattle as well, I presume, as well?
Oh, indeed. There would be days that they wouldn't be sold, and you'd bring them home again, yeah.
Yeah.
But generally they were sold.
Yeah. So you didn't turn to farming yourself then? Well, you did in a related way, I suppose.
I did, I suppose, in a related way, yeah. I went to school in Duncormac, and when I finished there then, I was sent into the Christian Brothers School in Wexford. And I cycled in there to the Christian Brothers. I stayed in town for the first 6 months with my Aunt Kathleen and Uncle Tom in School Street. And then I started to ride a bicycle in, a bad bike, I could say, with that I made up myself. And I cycled in 12 miles in and 12 miles out. So
for all your secondary education?
For all my secondary education,
yeah. Which is unheard of course, today.
Well, there was a lot of lads doing that.
At that time?
Coming in from Cairn on bikes, and the lads from Rosslare, of course, they had the train coming up to the brothers. And we had to be in there at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So how did you get a career in agriculture then? How did all that start?
Well, I got a job then when I finished. I did the Leaving Cert in 1961. And one of the Christian Brothers, Brother Keller, asked me would I be interested in working with the county council. And he says there's interviews in Enniscorthy someday later on. And I went up to Enniscorthy to the machinery yard there and had an interview there. And I got a job then with the county council, a stores clerk on the road with dealing with surface dressing and things like that.
All right.
And that would be from March until about October, I suppose. And then I was sent into the county hall for the next 5 or 6 months to work in the engineering roads department there. So I used to stay in Enniscorthy in one of them old huts that the councilmen used to have. And I stayed, I remember a man by the name of Billy Brennan used to drive a roller, and he took me in for the first couple of weeks in Enniscorthy into his wagon. I got upstairs in the upstairs bed, and he was down in the lower one.
Yeah. And these were common that time for...
They were very common in all the quarries. We worked out of the quarries. The chips were obviously brought from Roadstone, who were breaking on the county council were breaking them, but they used to deliver them around to all the quarries in Chapel East and down in Burkestown and Ballaconic and places like that.
Yeah.
And there was always sleeping accommodation there then. And when we went to those places, then we slept they had old buses and things that had converted into caravans or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had to feed ourselves and look after ourselves, but we didn't mind. We were only 18 years of age. You didn't care.
Yeah. And how long did you spend that then?
I spent 4 years nearly at it. But the biggest problem was getting home to train with the lads. Like, I was big into the hurling and football then. And sometimes some of the men would drive me, some of the lorry men took sympathy on me and drive me home or give me an old van or something to drive down from Enniscorthy. Yeah. And I stayed with them then for just 4 years. And I applied then for a job on Forest to Luntage, Johnstown Castle, in my 4th year there. And I got a job there then in 1965. And I stayed there till 43 years I was in Johnstown Castle.
A whole lifetime in Johnstown.
A whole lifetime, yeah.
So you know more about Johnstown Castle than a lot of people do then. What area did you specialise in?
I worked in the soils area and that particular area, and worked mostly on the soils area.
So when farmers sent in their soil samples, was you one of the people who...
We used to test them, yeah. We'd bring them in and test them and dry them and put the solutions on them and test them in the machines and whatever.
And tell them what...
send them back out to the agricultural instructors, and they then...
Pass them on to them.
They passed them on to the farmers, yeah.
Was it interesting work?
It was brilliant, yeah, brilliant. And from a farming background, it was lovely to be in there and see all the results of this land is poor there, that land is poor, or there's great land there, and all that sort of thing. Yeah. You knew all the varieties of land throughout the county and throughout Ireland, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, because samples from all over the country came.
All over the country, yeah. They came from everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we had the soil survey place in Johnstown as well, who did surveys in most of the counties in Ireland as well. So we knew the types of soils in all the areas.
And this had never been really done before on any great level?
Oh, no, the Forest to Luntage were the first to do that. They were set up to do it, I suppose, in one sense, and guide the farmers through their particular difficulties with soils.
So it happened to be in the right place at the right time, because it was only outside your own parish that you were
that's
working.
Right, yeah. I used to ride a bike to Johnstown, so it was about 7 or 8 miles. And a sister of mine, Frances, used to work there as well. And we got a car then, and I was often eating the breakfast going along in the car, which she'd be driving, going into work in the morning. But we got there by 9 o'clock anyway. Yeah. And then I got married, and I lived up on the new line up near Skeeter Park. So the bicycle, I got up on the bicycle and got down there most morning. Well, earlier on most morning I had a car as well, but the exercise on the bicycle was great.
Yeah. And who did you marry?
I married Anne Doody from Newbridge in County Kildare.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a Wexford name.
It's not a Wexford name, although her father was from Wexford, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her father lived in Wexford for a long number of years.
Yeah.
Related to the Moors down in Kilmore.
Oh, very good.
And so I married Anne. We have four children, Seamus, Eileen, Dermot and Donal.
And they're all flown the nest?
They're all flown the nest, yeah. Eileen is teaching down in the local school now. Donal, the youngest, is over in Qatar, in Doha. Seamus is with the ESB in Waterford, and Dermot is with the EPA in Kilkenny. So there's 3 of them close by, and the other one we have to go visit now and again.
Yeah, out in the Middle East.
Out in the Middle East, out the heat in the Middle East.
Yeah. So I want to come back then, and I'm going to talk to you more about this, because we want to talk about your book that you brought out earlier this year, Jim. But your interest in the GAA, were you from a GAA family, or how did it all start?
Well, I suppose when we were, there was 4 boys in the family, and the girls used to hurl as well a bit, so there was always activity out on the road outside the house. There was no cars going up and down then, so we hurled a lot there up and down the road and up against the wall.
In Scar, and
in the yard then there was a square little window in the barn, so that was our aim. If we were ever going to be hurlers, we should be able to put 9 out of 10 balls in through that window. Now there was steel bars in it, there wasn't glass in it, or it wouldn't have lasted very long. Yeah. But the odd time then, of course, the ball hit the windows of the house as well, and it was very hard to get glass in those days. You had to go down to Waddy Dyes in Bridgetown to get glass, and make sure you had the right measurements and not break it coming back.
So there was lots of windows broken.
There was a good few windows broken, yes, indeed. There was a good few windows.
Yeah. But your love for it continued.
Absolutely.
All your whole life.
We went to school in Duncormac and we hurled there. Frank Hearn was the schoolmaster, and he encouraged us, but he didn't come out with us or anything.
Yeah.
Now he entered us into the record league when that started up in 1957, and the story about that is not good for me because I was going to the Christian Brothers my first year there in the Christian Brothers at 13. And the record league was under 14, but I had left the primary school and I wasn't supposed to play. But the men in charge of the thing anyway said, "Oh, come on, you can play. You're under 14."
Yeah.
So I played in anything at the time. So I went out and I played anyway against the Ballamity. And they objected to me playing. They said, "He's going to a secondary school. He's not eligible to play."
Yes.
So I heard this and I got up on the bike and I got out of there as quickly as I could. So they had heard that the Ballamity had an overage player.
Right.
So they counter-objected anyway, and there was a replay order, but I didn't go down near the field when that was played. I was so shy, I was afraid somebody would say something to me. There's the fellow was overage or something like that, you know. So,
yeah, so
I stayed away, and they beat Ballamity the next day without me anyway.
But you won't forget that anyway.
I have it in the book, as a matter of fact. I never forget that as long as I live.
No, as long as you live. So you're interested, and you played for the club, and indeed played for the county.
Played for the club then, and of course Rathangan joined up with Father MacDonald's team in Kilmore, and that was a great time for us because we won all before us in underage, juvenile, minor, and under 21 when it was inaugurated in '64 in both hurling and football.
Right.
We won 3 minor hurling and minor football titles in a row.
50 years ago this year, in 1968, was a great year for the Ans, and you were very much part of that.
It was a great year for everything. That was the year that Jack Godby-Gutham won the All-Ireland. Mm-hmm. We won the senior football title for the first time, and we celebrated it there recently, the 50th anniversary, down in the new hurling alley down in Rathangan.
We're going to talk a little bit more now about Jim Berry's book on the history of the Rathangan St. Anne's GA Club now after the break. My special guest on the programme this morning is Jim Berry from Rathangan, and we'll be back to you in a moment.
OK, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Kim?
Sorry. Dust off there. 4.
The Lotto jackpot is an estimated €5 million. Great news for almost everyone. Play responsibly in-app, in-store or at lottery.ie.
Hi, Dermot here from Smith's Home Value in Escorthy. It's Black Friday this week and we've some fabulous deals with limited stock dotted around our store. Like our half-price slow cookers or our cultivators are back at €100, save €200, or Kenwood Chefs at €100, save €50. So celebrate Black Friday with some fabulous deals in the recently voted best paint store in Ireland. Smith's Home Value in Escorthy.
This Christmas in Home Store and More. All Christmas tree lights, all Cash and Living giftware and all Christmas table linen is half price. But better hurry, because when all the half price Cash and Living giftware is gone, it's gone. And when all the half price Christmas table linen is gone, it's definitely gone. And as for our half price Christmas tree lights, they'll be gone in a twinkling. All offers available online at homestoreandmore.ie, as well as in-store at Home Store and More, Hanover Retail Park Carlow, Clonard Retail Park Wexford, Butlerstown Retail Park Waterford. Home Store and More. Christmas made more when you shop in Home Store and More.
Harney's Ballydedmond entertainment this weekend. Saturday Lee Mannering, Sunday Update, and Monday the Wicklow Man. Harney's of Ballydedmond for a great night out.
When does movie night become something more? When you light the fire. Whatever you're doing, make the moment even warmer with the welcoming aroma of Bord na Móna peat briquettes.
Whitmore Jewelers Main Street Gorey and Gorey Shopping Centre, massive savings this Black Friday and Gold Saturday. 10 to 50% off selected pieces of diamonds, jewellery and watches. Whitmore Jewelers Main Street Gorey and Whitmore Jewelers Gorey Shopping Centre, where deposits are welcome. Whitmore Jewelers, the family jewellers since 1957.
In music, you'll find 12 notes. They can start down here and go right up here. Harmonise them and you get a perfect range indeed. But there is another. Because during the Audi Experience 191 sales event, you'll find the entire Audi range at your local authorised Audi dealer now. Sounds good, right? Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Welcome back to the programme now. My special guest on the show today is Jim Berry from Rathangan. And Jim, I believe you have the unique distinction of playing both football and hurling for Wexford in the one day, brought yourself and your brother Jack. How did all that come about?
That's right, Michael, yeah. It was a unique situation, I suppose. We were drawn against Dublin in the O'Byrne Cup, and that was played in Wexford Park. I remember I was playing centre forward that day, or centre end. But then Wexford were playing Kilkenny immediately afterward in the Welsh Cup. And Jack went in at the start off. I don't know how scarce they were of them, whether they had subs or not. But Jack went in at the start off of the game. And about halfway through it, Michael Kinster, who was centre back, got hurt. And I went in then to play the rest of the half. So we got the 2 games into one day.
Yeah. So you continued though to play and played an active role with Rathangan for many years after that.
I played for a long time. I played for too long, Michael. I played until I was about 43 or 4. And then they were scarce one day, and I was 52 years of age, and we went up to play a junior B game up in Blackwater.
Yeah.
And I was drafted into the full forward position, or the corner forward position. I was 52. Martin Ryan, who was 50, was playing full forward, and Francis Whelan, who was 49, he was playing in the other corner.
So, but not alone that, Jim, you went on then into the administrative area of the GA here, not alone the county, but at Leinster level as well.
That's right, Michael. The late Tom Rowe, who was district chairman here for over 30 years in Wexford, happened on him on the main street one day, and there was a vacancy in the county chairman, and he says, "Will you run for it?" And I said, I'd think about it, Tom. So I thought for a long time anyway, and I ran for it and won it. So I was chairman then from 1980 to 85. And after that then I was a delegate to Leinster Council for a couple of years, and I became the Leinster Treasurer and then Leinster Vice Chairman and Chairman in 1996.
I suppose, you have done a great service to your own club with the massive book that you have produced and published earlier this year. And it's a history of your local club that many other clubs wouldn't have. So this must have taken a lot of time to compile this and to get all the historical facts that you have in it right.
Well, it certainly took a long time, all right, Michael. Consider I started in 1984, but I only stayed a few weeks at it because there was too many interesting things in the old papers about some fella got fined for having no light on his bike.
Yeah, and you got carried away.
Dog lights, and I got carried away, so we got nowhere with it. After a few weeks I had about a page of stuff written, So then we stopped, and about 10 years afterwards then we went at it again, and we had this digital camera, and some of the lads then used to get out the bit that St. Anne's were on, and I'd photograph it and bring that home with me.
Yeah.
And get it developed or whatever. And that went on for only about 6 months, and we stopped again then because it was coming into April and the games were starting up, so I didn't do any more then for a long time until I retired. And now I said I'll finish this off fairly quickly in 6 or 8 months. But I was retired for 5 years. I still hadn't gone back to do anything with it. And eventually I said, if I don't go soon, I won't remember what I should remember and whatever. So I got at it anyway, and I went into the library in town and I got the microfilm there. I had a good bit of stuff put aside myself as well.
Yeah.
I got a few photographs from a few people that I haven't recognised there in the book as given photographs for it. And so I started off the book then, I'd say 5 years ago. I started off doing it, and then maybe a year or more ago I started to write it all up. Handwritten. I hand wrote it all up, yeah.
And how many pages are in it?
There's 516 pages.
That's a lot of writing.
Yeah.
Well, the changes in the facilities that GA clubs have now, you must have seen a huge difference and a huge improvement like that the clubs have today from your time even.
It's marvellous. I mean, we were, I won't say backward, but we weren't very forward in getting facilities because the farmer always gave us the field and we didn't bother anymore. We had the pitch and we stripped off in the ditches or in the cars if we had cars at the time. And then eventually we bought the... We came up to Rathangan. Father Byrne was there, and he said, "I give you the 3 fields there," and we put the 3 fields into one. And he used to have sheep out on him as well at the time, and there used to be a bit of rouse about the sheep being out on the fields and whatever. Yeah. But anyway, we were wanting to buy land to do it, and Father Morris, God be good to him, then came as a curate, and he got onto the bishop. Father Byrne had gone at this time, got onto the bishop to sell us the field. So he had a referendum in the parish anyway to buy the land from the parish.
Yeah.
And I think it was 96% of the parish voted in favour of it. So
that's how you got your complex there today.
And we built the complex and all on it, yeah. And then in the recent times there, we've built a hurling alley and all on it, and an outdoor facility for all-weather pitch and all alongside of the alley.
Now, talk to me, Jim, about your brother Jack. You were very close to him in age and everywhere.
Indeed so, yeah. Jack was a year younger than I, and we hurled and kicked football, of course, day and night. And I remember my mother, that time you bought the flour bags, like with a bag of flour in it, 4 stone, whatever was in it, but she made two football nixes out of these flour bags for us.
Right.
Stitched them up, and we had just got the water into the cow house at the time, and we'd be out kicking, and we'd come in then and we'd spray the cold water out of the tap. We had showers and all at that stage before anyone had showers, but it was very cold, like, you know.
Yeah.
But we played away, and we played with one another. We did everything together. He used to sow beat and all, Jack had sow beat, and I'd have a bit of beat with him and whatever. And we worked away with one another for years and years.
And his untimely passing then was a shock.
Big shock to his family, Sadie and Magella and Paul and Jack, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big shock to us all.
How many years is it going now?
15 years, yeah. 2003, he was 58 years of age at the time, and it was a tremendous shock to us all, yeah. Because he was a great character in his own way, like
and he lived for the GA as well.
Oh, he did indeed, yeah. He had great insight into it, and he hurled with Wexford, and he was a selector with Wexford and things like that. So he was big into the finer detail of it.
Yeah. So Jim, you're now retired, and you have spent some of your retirement years writing this book. Yeah. So have you other plans?
People ask me that, what's the name of the next book? But no, I'm not writing any more books, no. I get great pleasure now out of reading the book I wrote, particularly the earlier part of it where I had forgotten what I had written.
Yes,
So that particular area, the 30s and 40s and 50s, because I knew the names and I knew the people.
Yeah.
And I love going over that particular part.
But the book goes right back to when?
The book goes back to 1884 when the GA was founded.
And it was founded in Rathangan the same time then?
It was founded, well, in Rathangan, it was in different areas then. Within the parish there could have been 3 or 4 teams. And the famous team in Rathangan that time was, the games didn't start in 1886 organised. In 1887 there was a famous team in Kilmannon. And they went in the county championship, and there was, I think, 27 teams or something in it, and it was finished in 5 weeks. They played sometimes twice on a Sunday.
Yeah.
But the Kilmannon lads got to the final, and there was no score scored against them in any of the matches they played. So they must have been red hot favourites for the final. Yeah. They played Castlebridge in the final, and the score was 2 points apiece. So Kilmannon objected, saying that Castlebridge only scored 1 point, that the other point wasn't a point at all. In those days, there was 2 sets of posts, the inner post and the outer post.
Yeah.
A forfeit point was scored on the outer post. It's sort of a 45er today. So the referee anyway put in his 2 points apiece. So it went to the county board, and there was objections to it, and there was talk about it. And the referee was then asked, how did he come to 2 points apiece? Well, he says that one of the spectators told me that it was a point. And then they quizzed him further, who was the spectator? Well, he was a priest in the spectators that told him that it was a point. That's why I put down 2 points each. So Kilmannon wouldn't replay, never replayed, and didn't play for another 3 years after that.
Yeah. And finally, before we have to mention, of course, the golden year, that's the front cover of your book, the year 2000 for the club.
That's right. That was a brilliant time, Michael, yeah. To win the senior hurling and football, I think we were the first to do it. From 1965, Harriers did it. 1903, Enniscorthy Rapparees did it, and then we did it in 2000. And such a good year to do with the Millennium Double, I always call it.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable.
It'll never be forgotten.
I remember when we beat Oulard in the hurling, getting down on my knees and crying in Belfield.
Is that right?
It was such a great time, and we had such a great time celebrating it.
Yeah. Well, look, our time is up, Jim, and it's been most interesting talking to you. And thank you very much for being my guest on the programme today. My guest this morning was Jim Berry from Rathangan, and his book, of course, is on sale now. It's been out for the past few months, but I'm sure it'll make an ideal Christmas gift for anybody this year. So thank you very much, Jim, for being my guest on the show, and I'll have another interesting guest for you to meet on the programme at the same time next week. Until then, it's Michael Doyle saying bye-bye.